Warfield, as I try to demonstrate in this article, has interests in many areas, both what we would say secular, but all the ones I'm looking at and the ones that are well known are the theological. But even so, he's interested in New Testament, Old Testament originally. He's interested in church history and historical theology. As I show,
canon formation, textual criticism, along with that New Testament work.
So text criticism, canon formation, various doctrines that are in the New Testament. Then he also deals with historical theology and church history. He deals with Calvin and the Calvinist tradition.
Race relations.
He deals earlier with Tertullian and Augustine. He even, has popular articles on race relations, and he also writes on the Westminster Assembly. Right, so he's got a volume that he has two volumes in his Oxford, what I call Oxford, but currently are published, or the last time they were reprinted, it was Baker. Two of those volumes are devoted to what he calls perfectionism, but he's dealing with the German as well as the American forms of what are traditionally called Methodism. But also the Wesleyan, he knows that the perfectionist movement, goes back to John Wesley in England, but it also has its American offspring or children in the Oberlin movement, which was founded at the Oberlin College in Ohio, was founded as a Christian school, but it's in that higher life Wesleyan. They're not really Wesleyan, but they are. They're more, and they're associated with Charles Finney and Asa Mahan, two well-known faculty members, and they are involved with the abolition movement, and they're involved with women's suffrage. So that's the perfection, and oddly enough, by God's providence, I was born in Oneida, New York, and one of the well-known perfectionist movements is the Oneida community. They were a free love community, among other things. And what
into silverware?
What is left over is the silverware, which I have lots of in my home because I inherited that from my parents. But I was born in Oneida. There were a group of ministers who objected to the influence of Charles Finney, because John Humphrey Noyes, who was the founder of the Oneida community, was a convert of Charles Finney. Now, of course, it reminds me of a comment made, I think it was Moody, D.L. Moody was walking the streets of London, and he comes across this, and I heard this in a podcast, that's why it comes to me, who was walking on the streets of London, and he comes across this bum, a street person, and he says, "Dr. Moody, do you remember me? I'm one of your converts," to which he said, it was either he or Spurgeon, who said, "Clearly you are a convert of mine. You're not a convert of the Lord Jesus Christ, or you wouldn't be in this condition."
That's one way to put it.
That's the milieu, and that's the international Christian milieu in which Warfield is working. Warfield, perhaps, and this is also the debated topic, because Warfield has a wife who is ill, who is often described as an invalid, although Fred Zaspel in his book on Warfield raises the issue that, or offers a corrective, that it wasn't the whole extent of the marriage, that there was a time when Mrs. Warfield was not an invalid, and he offers evidence to that effect. So, but at some point she becomes an invalid.
Sure.
And he therefore doesn't stray far from the Princeton campus. So his influence is primarily in his writing. and teaching.
Mm-hmm.
He's not a traveling name. In other words, he doesn't get on a speaker. He doesn't get involved in what we would call the rubber chicken circuit. He's not in the gospel coalition of his day. He's not in Together for the Gospel, those kinds of things. Of what would be like that. The Chautauqua movement maybe would be a contemporary movement of his time. He's not a part of that.
Uh-huh.
He's not even involved, as far as I can tell, in the what would be something like the Evangelical Theological Society. He stays. He's at home, and therefore he's able to do a boatload of reading and writing because of his care of his wife, that perhaps he would not have been able to do if his wife had remained healthy and robust during the length of their marriage.
Mm-hmm.
He loved his wife. He cared for her, but because of her condition, he didn't travel far and wide, and therefore we are the beneficiaries, right? The people of his time may have suffered the lack of his public speaking, but we are the beneficiaries because we have so much of his writing. I didn't even make reference to the Banner of Truth volumes that are I think more or less sermons that he preached that are available. So there are several volumes in the Banner of Truth that have been published about Warfield. I didn't even deal with his Order of Salvation volume.